Welcome, and thank you for listening to Xenozoic Xenophiles, a fan podcast devoted to the comic series Xenozoic Tales, a post-apocalyptic adventure series filled with Cadillacs and dinosaurs, from creator, writer, and artist Mark Schultz. I'm Darren.
And I'm Ruth, and this is a fan podcast. We're not affiliated with Mark Schultz, and the opinions expressed are just ours.
We do this podcast simply because we enjoy reading and talking about Xenozoic Tales and the other worlds created by Mark Schultz.
In this episode, we're continuing our coverage of the excellent animated television series Cadillacs and Dinosaurs from 1993.
The series was adapted for television by award-winning writer, producer, and director Stephen E. Souza.
Listeners are likely familiar with his work on classic television shows like The $6 Million Man, The Hardy Boys Mysteries, and Knight Rider, as well as hugely successful films, including 48 Hours, Die Hard, Judge Dredd, The Running Man, and Commando.
The entire production team did a wonderful job of bringing Xenozoic Tales to television as Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, and we're enjoying revisiting these classic episodes.
If you want to watch the show, you can find it on a few streaming services as well as on YouTube through the Retro Rerun channel. We are watching it on Amazon Prime Video.
For new listeners, we want to share a little about our title. Of course, the word Xenozoic is part of the title of the comic.
Xeno is defined as something that is strange or foreign, while zoic refers to a geological period of time. So, Xenozoic basically means strange age.
And a xenophile is someone who is interested in foreign lands and foreign cultures. And that word describes us perfectly because we're definitely interested in foreign lands and cultures, just like those found in Xenozoic Tales and the other works of Mark Schultz.
And of course, some of you know the series under the title Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, which is used for the TV series as well as video games, board games, and some reprint collections.
If you love these stories and the wonderful art, be sure to join the Facebook page Mark Schultz Xenozoic Tales and Other Stories for the latest official news and information.
The place to find Mark's books is Flesk Publications. John Flesk puts out beautiful books from a variety of creators, including the collection Xenozoic, that contains all of the Xenozoic Tales stories written and illustrated by Mark Schultz, as well as the exciting book Storms at Sea and the Carbon Art Book series.
We were lucky to see Mark Schultz at Heroes Con just this year. It was wonderful to have a chance to chat with him and to see John Flesk, as well as our mutual friend Joe Dragunis.
We also saw that Mark Schultz has designed a shirt for DragonCon this year, and it looks awesome with an amazing dinosaur-dragon combination. We often attend DragonCon, but sadly we can't make it this year. But we encourage any Mark Schultz fans out there who are attending to pick up one of these cool-looking shirts.
We also saw that the upcoming issue of Illustrators magazine features an in-depth interview with Mark, along with lots of art.
We hope you'll join us on social media to talk more about Mark Schultz and the world of Xenozoic Tales. Later in the episode, we'll share feedback and we'll provide our email address and other ways to contact us at the end of the show.
Please feel free to write in anytime and let us know what you think about the series. We'd love to know what you like best about the art and the stories and how you first discovered Xenozoic Tales.
Xenozoic Xenophiles is part of the Rad Adventures Network.
If you enjoy the show, please consider checking out our other podcasts that are available through most podcast apps, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music, as well as YouTube.
Trekker Talk is a fan podcast devoted to the adventures of 23rd century bounty hunter Mercy St. Clair from the pages of the sci-fi comic Trekker by writer and artist Ron Randall.
And Warlord Worlds is a fan podcast devoted to the comic creations of writer and artist Mike Grell, including The Warlord, John Sable, and Green Arrow.
Mark Schultz, Ron Randall, and Mike Grell are our favorite comic creators. Their stories are filled with adventure and interesting characters, and their art is excellent.
We'll include links to those other podcasts in our show notes, but for now, let's talk about Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, right after this message from another podcast you might enjoy.
Worlds would live,
Worlds would die.
and DC Comics would never be the same again.
Crisis on Infinite Earths. The crossover so epic it reached every corner of the DC multiverse. Join DC Dave
And Doug Adamson as we discuss the Monitor Tapes.
at Crisis on Infinite Earths podcast.
Find us on your favorite podcatcher and join the discussion at themonitortapes.com.
Episode 7, Survival, written by David Wise, originally broadcast on November 20, 1993.
The episode opens with Jack and Kurgo tapping rubber trees for a natural way to make rubber seals, fan belts, and other parts for engines. Unknown to them, nearby a poacher has discovered a cave filled with ancient parts, and he sets an explosive to blow away some of the rock to get better access to the ancient parts. Jack hears the explosion, which causes him to drop a bucket full of raw rubber. Going to investigate the source, Jack sees the explosion has also disturbed a family of Wahunchucks, or Stegosaurus, that were using the cave as a home. The poacher is preparing to set off another explosion to drive the dinosaurs away, and Jack tries to stop him. In the aftermath of that second explosion, Jack and the dinosaurs manage to escape, but the poacher appears to have died in the resulting cave-in.
Sometime later at the City in the Sea, Governor Scharnhorst is telling Mustafa Cairo they have found a large cache of technological material in an underwater cavern. The find includes a sealed train freight car with signs indicated as from an ancient research facility. Scharnhorst has contacted Mustafa because the moles can't hold their breath long enough to collect the materials. She thinks his engineering skills could help with the recovery operation, but he refuses to assist with a project like that because the technology worries him.
Meanwhile, Jack and Hannah are traveling in one of his Cadillacs as they test signal strength for their radios by contacting Kurgo periodically, and Jack is pleased they have exceeded their previous distance record for communication. Then they receive a message from Mustafa Cairo explaining what Scharnhorst is doing, and Hannah is concerned because they uncovered a similar sealed freight car in Wassoon after an earthquake, and that was filled with canisters labeled with red symbols that led to a plague. Jack suspects it was toxic materials that the ancients had sealed away. Hannah continues her story and explains the only way they were able to stop the plague was by developing a medication from a special flower that grew in shaded areas in the jungle. Jack encourages Mustafa to try to stop Scharnhorst, but knowing she likely won't listen, he and Hannah drive into the dark forest to look for the flower, anticipating Scharnhorst's impatience.
Meanwhile, Scharnhorst doesn't want any interference from Jack and Hannah, so she radios one of her contacts named Lashard and asks him to detain Jack and Hannah. And as he gets off the radio, we see it is the poacher from the opening sequence who was severely injured in that earlier cave-in. He has lost an eye, and parts of his body are now covered in mechanical gadgets, and he plans to do more than detain the duo to get back at Jack for his interference.
While collecting the medicinal flowers in the dark forest, Jack and Hannah talk about how ancient pharmaceutical companies made medicines from flowers and plants. In the distance, we see that Lashard is watching them, and as he sees the path they are driving, he comes up with a plan and uses a smokescreen to cause a triceratops to stampede down a ravine toward their Cadillac, causing them to swerve, and they just manage to leap from the car before it plummets over the ravine.
Back at the City in the Sea, the moles have developed a method to pump out the water to reach the freight car, and despite Mustafa Cairo's pleas, they open the sealed car, which it turns out is filled with leaking silver canisters. The moles back away from the billowing clouds of toxic fumes as Mustafa rushes forward to close the freight car door, but it is too late, and he and the others quickly become ill. As the illness spreads, Scharnhorst remembers about the medicinal flowers and tries to contact Lashard to tell him to assist Jack and Hannah instead of detaining them, but he ignores her.
Jack and Hannah have survived the crash, but are now left to travel slowly on foot, and Lashard continues to stalk them from a distance, and next drives a stampede of hornbills after them, leaving them to climb cavern walls to avoid being trampled. Jack realizes they have a human tracking them, and knows they need to turn the tables and track their pursuer, who he theorizes must have a car. In time, our duo finds the vehicle, but it has a trained cutter guarding it, so Hannah tries to distract the slither while Jack circles around to get to the vehicle. However, when that doesn't work, Jack and Hannah hide in the branches of a nearby tree to await their stalker's return.
The next morning, Lashard returns to his vehicle and confronts Jack, but when a group of cutters attack, he tries to escape on foot. Jack and Hannah follow in his vehicle and rescue him, and then continue on to the City in the Sea to deliver the plants. Hannah prepares the medication, which thankfully helps Mustafa and the others to recover.
So I'll start off our review by saying that I've always liked trains. So during Hannah's story, I especially like seeing the sequence of the train being recovered in Wassoon.
I like that sequence too, and especially like seeing the woolly mammoths pulling the train out of the dig site. I've liked woolly mammoths since I first learned about them as a child, and always found their visual similarity to elephants very interesting. I also really enjoyed the scene about harvesting the sap from the rubber trees. I thought that was a nice bit of world building to show how they can make some parts they need for cars and other mechanical things. And it was a nice bit of character development as well, because an old blood mechanic like Jack Tenrick, who values nature, would definitely find an environmentally friendly way to make parts for his cars. I also laughed at the scene when Jack and Kurgo are using the radios and using old CB radio handles. It was funny, and I chuckled at Hannah's response to what the two of them were saying.
I liked that we got a different nemesis in this episode other than the Terhune brothers. Nothing against them, because I like those characters, but it is good for the show to have a different villain show up for a change. I thought the setup for Lashard was good, though maybe it didn't quite do a good enough job to establish a passage of time. I really felt the subsequent scenes were happening just after that opening scene, until I saw Lashard again, and suddenly knew there must have been a significant amount of time between the opening scene and the rest of the episode. But that's a small and trivial issue in an otherwise good episode. I also like that Jack repeatedly tries to save the poacher, and from the work he does, he should have known the danger he was in and taken precautions. However, Lashard puts all of that out of his mind because he just wants to blame someone else for his mistakes, and that person to blame is Jack.
Back in the city, I like seeing that even though she doesn't like Mustafa Cairo personally, Governor Scharnhorst still respects his engineering skills enough to ask for his help. And I like the underwater scenes and the ingenuity of the moles, even though they should know better than to open the freight car because of prior work they've done for Scharnhorst.
During the sequence in the dark forest, I like that Jack figures out a human is causing all of their problems that they keep running into while trying to return to the city. I also have to admit that even though he's the bad guy in the episode, that Lashard has designed some very cool gadgets following his accident. He's so talented that he should be able to make a living inventing new technology instead of having to steal ancient technology. Plus, he's also able to tame a cutter, so maybe he could be an old-blood mechanic like Jack if he changed his ways. That could have been an interesting storyline for a future episode if the series had continued.
I appreciate that it is Hannah's self-defense and fighting skills that finally defeat the poacher. I love that Hannah is smart and not helpless. And I like that Hannah explains to Jack about ancient pharmaceutical companies using flowers and plants. I also like that she is the one who makes the medicine that saves everyone. This is a good sequence to remind viewers that she is a scientist, as well as the importance of protecting our amazing natural resources.
Turning to the art, I'll just say that I love seeing the Zeeks perched on the rocks at the bay at the beginning. It's a terrific establishing shot to open the episode. Plus, we see Zeeks again later in the episode circling over the city and the sea. It's a really nice view of the water and the coastline.
I agree, and there are some terrific cityscape views in the episode. I like seeing the architecture and designs of the city and the sea, and in this episode, we get to see it both in the daylight and at nighttime. I like seeing those different views. Plus, I noticed a lovely scene of the city near the end of the episode that looks almost like a watercolor painting. It's a terrific transition shot with beautiful coloring and different gradations of color.
I agree. There are some great views of the city, and I also want to compliment the variety of the landscapes we see as Jack and Hannah travel back to the city. There are some really great scenes that add a lot to this episode.
I love those open landscapes as well as the lush jungles and mountain ranges that help establish the large distance our heroes are traveling.
In closing, I'll just say that this series as a whole delivers lots of action and adventure, and this episode is no exception, as it is filled with a sense of jeopardy and thrilling close calls throughout.
The episode has a nice variety of dinosaur encounters in caves, on cliffside roads, stampeding through a ravine, and more. It's good fun. Episode 8, It Only Comes Out at Night, written by Marty Eisenberg and Robert Skier. Originally broadcast on November 27, 1993.
The episode opens at night at the bay by the city and the sea, as Jack and Kurgo dock at the harbor. Kurgo is complaining about one of Jack's intuitions costing him a good night's sleep. Jack is suspicious of a new water reclamation project that Scharnhorst is leading in the city, especially because there have been rumors that moles have been disappearing from the dig site. Jack climbs over a fence, but doesn't realize that Kurgo, who is behind him, has been whisked away in the shadows. But then he hears Kurgo scream, and Jack turns to briefly see a giant creature, but it whips its tail, sending a stack of metal pipes hurtling toward him and knocking him unconscious. When he wakes, both Kurgo and the creature are gone.
Jack confronts Governor Scharnhorst at her office, and she tells him she isn't interested in stories about imaginary monsters. Governor Dahlgren interrupts their argument, pointing out that if Kurgo is really missing, that means he won't be ferrying fresh water from the mainland, and that means the water reclamation project needs to move faster.
That night, Hannah joins Jack at the excavation site, and they find tracks near where the attack occurred the night before, and follow them into a tunnel that leads underground. Scharnhorst has anticipated Jack's plan and has a guard watching who follows them into the tunnel. Hannah is amazed how quickly the crews have made progress with the tunnels for the project, and Jack says it is because of an acid they have developed. Then Jack and Hannah hear a scream behind them and double back to find a damaged walkie-talkie laying on the ground, and we know it belonged to the guard who was following them. They then follow the fresh tracks into a different tunnel and noticed a strong odor, and there they find where the new acid is being stored. Jack explains that it is strong enough to soften rock and concrete, making the digging go faster. Then, a giant creature rises up from a cavern in the ground and races away from them. The tracks match those they found earlier, and they follow them into the tunnels to an area that was previously used as a marketplace until the water encroached into the area. The creature appears again and knocks our two heroes into the water below before it vanishes into the shadows once again.
Jack returns to Governor Scharnhorst with evidence of the giant creature's footprints that he and Hannah tracked. He explains it's an amphibious whiptail, but everyone believes those are mythical. Scharnhorst accuses them of manufacturing the evidence and throws them out of her office.
Jack contacts Mustafa Cairo to bring tracking and hunting equipment from the garage. That night, Jack and Hannah go back to the excavation site and begin their search. In the tunnels, Hannah finds a circuit breaker and is able to bring some lights to parts of the tunnels. As they walk further into the tunnels, the smell of the acid gets stronger. Then they hear a sound and quickly hide in the shadows just before the creature walks by them, and they notice that it stops and sniffs at one of the containers of acid, and they realize it is the smell of the acid that is attracting the creature. Then they hear a car horn and see headlights in the distance. It's Mustafa driving one of Jack's Cadillacs. The noise momentarily distracts the creature, and Jack and Hannah jump into the car and they all race away.
Hannah formulates a plan with a snare net that Mustafa brought, and they begin circling the dig site in the Cadillac with a container of the acid in the back seat to attract the creature. Suddenly, the creature appears and wraps its tail around Mustafa and drags him away into one of the tunnels. Jack and Hannah pursue the creature in the Cadillac, and there discover its nest, which is filled with eggs, and one has just hatched. However, as they look at the nest, they realize the other eggs will never hatch because they have been damaged by a container of nearby acid. Then Jack and Hannah realize the mother whiptail has been gathering food, and they realize there's a chance their friends are still alive nearby.
Listening carefully, Jack hears the whiptail returning, and Hannah passes the snare net launcher to him. When it's in sight, Hannah turns on the car's headlights and Jack fires the snare net. While the creature fights against the confining net, Jack and Hannah find where the whiptail has trapped Kurgo, Mustafa, and the others while waiting for the eggs to hatch. Just then, Governor Knock and several armed soldiers arrive and prepare to fire at the trapped whiptail. Jack and Hannah bring the one-hatched baby whiptail to where the mother is struggling with the snare net, and they free it, and the two swim away just before the soldiers can fire their weapons.
I absolutely love the opening scene of the double moon over the harbor, and from that beginning to the very end, this is one of my favorite episodes of the series. Plus, this is a nice Loch Ness Monster type of story. I've always thought it's fun to imagine that the Loch Ness Monster might possibly be real. So, this was a fun episode in my opinion.
And speaking of other creatures, I like squirrels, and it was fun to see one show up in the tunnels. I think Hannah called it a paramis. so that was a very fun scene for me.
I always enjoy exploration and discovery, both in real life and in stories, so I like that aspect of this episode. The suspense of walking through mysterious dark tunnels scattered with piles of debris and only flashlights to light the way ahead, and then the surprise of a giant creature showing up periodically all makes for a fun adventure.
And I'll chime in and compliment the excellent music soundtrack. The deep, low sounds and the atmospheric use of music creates an uneasy sense of foreboding that greatly adds to the suspense in the episode. I also like that they have Hannah mention that any worker who complains is quickly reassigned to a location far away to keep the rumors from spreading. That sounds exactly like something Scharnhorst would do.
Turning to the art, I really like the nighttime scenes at the docks, like the one I mentioned earlier from the beginning of the episode. It does a very good job of establishing a moody setting. And after Mustafa is captured, there's a terrific scene of the double moons in the sky above the city as Jack and Hannah continue searching. I love all of the different colors in that great image.
The illustrations of the many dark and twisting tunnels do a good job of creating a feeling of claustrophobia and confinement that adds to the suspense of the story. And there are some great underwater sequences with fish and seaweed, and the subtle transitions of color and shading add lots of variety to the visuals.
The art does a great job of conveying the age of these forgotten areas. For instance, I love the design of the marketplace area with the water and ancient columns. It's terrific. A favorite visual sequence for me is when we are treated to a ride around the city at night, with various bridges and arches that showcase the city, along with more great images of the moon and stars. It's really a beautifully animated episode.
In closing, I'll just say this story shares a lot of DNA with favorite episodes of a couple of other classic shows. It reminds me very much of one of my favorite episodes of the series Kolchak the Night Stalker, which is The Sentry, in which a lizard-like creature attacks workers at a new construction site when the excavations open a tunnel near its nest. And it's also similar to the episode The Devil in the Dark from the original Star Trek series, which is about a creature attacking miners who have tunneled into the area of its nest. It's a great idea for a story, and like those other classic shows, this episode does a nice job of creating a similarly suspenseful story.
I agree. It's a sad tale of the dangers of hazardous waste, and it's a powerful message for viewers about the importance of taking care of our environment. The somber ending to the story again sets the series apart from the typical Saturday morning cartoon. It's very thought-provoking, and it's told very well. Hannah has to make a tough decision, and the episode conveys how difficult that decision is. An excellent episode.
Next up is listener feedback, when we share the emails and messages we've received since last time.
Thanks to everyone for the comments. Your support and encouragement is great, and we appreciate everyone who took time to get in touch to share your thoughts.
John Adam Scott saw the post for our previous episode and let us know he was excited to listen to it. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and thanks for your support.
Austin Appleby told us he was happy he saved our podcast for a road trip and said we kept him company for some of his travels, and he enjoyed hearing all about Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. Thanks, Austin.
John Baker let us know he enjoyed our previous podcast, saying, as usual, a plethora of interesting tidbits, nice perspective, and a passion for the subject. Thanks for your usual joyful take on this gem.
John continued by saying, motivated by your wonderful podcast, I have started watching the episodes of Cadillacs and Dinosaurs on YouTube. Really enjoyable, and I'm a little surprised at how the animation is. A lot better than I expected.
We agree, John. The animation really is excellent for a Saturday morning cartoon. And sadly, that's one of the reasons we only got one season of the series. Maintaining that level of quality made the show too expensive to justify a second season, but we're very thankful for these 13 excellent episodes.
Thanks, John, for always being such a good friend and for all of your support.
Thank you, everyone, for the wonderful comments and for sharing your love of the animated series.
Next, we want to extend our thanks to everyone who supported the show on social media since last episode. These are people who commented or shared posts from us, and we sincerely appreciate all of the support.
Before we start, let me say if we miss a name, just let us know and we'll correct that next time. And please forgive us if we mispronounce your name. Just write to us and let us know, and we'll be sure to correct that next episode as well.
Austin Appleby, Bill Dilling, Bob Kidd, Brian Mulvey, Kat Randall, Chad Hendall, Charles Erickson, Chris Mounts, Clinton Robeson, Cullen Stapleton, David Wade, Ed and Terry Moore, Edward Dillon, Eric Rivera, Gary Houtz, Gary Woolard, Gene Hendricks, Jeff Mullins, Jerry Green, Glenn Allen, Ilsa Everett, James Helm, James Williams, Jeffrey Sargent, Jim Latimer, John Baker, John Copenhaver, John Nachinovich, John Scott,
Karen Williams, Linda Foster, Luke Ed, Mark Opara, Mike Garvey, Nathan Jensen, Nevs Coleman, Pat Sampson, Paul Keene, Peter Noga, Philip Hillis, Professor Allen, Rich Dannies, who worked on Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, Rob Douglas, Robert Orth, Robert Pilk, Rod Pellegrini, Ron and Lynn Randall, Ruth Michaels, Scott Connor, Tim McEwen, The Podcrasher Tim Price, Toby Goodshank, Tom Gerg, Vic Sage, Vlad Petnicki, and Warren Montgomery.
Thank you again, everyone, and we'll be right back after this promo for another podcast you may enjoy.
2 months only, Halloween hoedown at the House of Frankenstein.
Your favorite Halloween party returns with 4 brand new episodes featuring cinematic horror classics and horror-filled superhero tales starring Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man.
Pin the bandage on Boris Karloff as the Mummy.
You will not remember what I show you now, and yet I shall awaken memories of love and crime and death.
Do the locomotion with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing on the Horror Express.
Are you telling me that an ape that lived 2 million years ago got up to that crate, killed the baggage man and put him in there?
Yes, I am. It's alive. It must be.
Bob for Apples with Hammer's The Reptile.
Get away from there! Get away!
Jam to the blues at this juke joint full of sinners.
We're gonna kill every last one of you.
This September and October, join the Supermates at fireandwaterpodcast.com for the most happening haunt this side of the mausoleum, the House of Frankenstein. Halloween Hoedown!
Before we go, we want to provide our contact information.
If you want to contact us directly or have something you would like to have read on the show, then please send an email to Xenozoic Xenophiles at gmail.com.
You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky as Xenozoic Xenophiles, and you can visit our website at xenozoicxenophiles.com for links to all of our social media pages.
You can listen to the show through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and most other podcast apps, and all of our episodes are always available at xenozoicxenophiles.com.
You can also find the show on YouTube as part of the Rad Adventures Network. That's RAD, R-A-D, which is short for Ruth and Darren.
On the Rad Adventures YouTube channel, you'll find all of the episodes of all of our podcasts, including Xenozoic Xenophiles, as well as Trekker Talk about 23rd century bounty hunter Mercy St. Clair by Ron Randall, and Warlord Worlds about the comic creations of Mike Grell, including the Warlord, John Sable, and Green Arrow.
If you like the show, please consider leaving a review. Every review helps the podcast be more likely to show up in search results.
And on YouTube, we hope you'll subscribe to the channel and give us some likes on the videos.
Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you'll come back next time for another new episode of Xenozoic Xenophiles.
Xenozoic Xenophiles is a proud member of the Comics Podcast Network. For more information, please visit comicspodcasts.com. We are not affiliated with Mark Schultz or the various companies that have published the series. The views expressed on the show are solely ours. Music is taken from the album Movie Tunes, Background Music, Songs and Loops, Volume 2. We make no money from this podcast, and no copyright infringement is intended.